All right, this is our first exercise of the semester, and inspired by Arturo Herrera's cartoon jumbles here using Disney coloring books, we are going to get some practice with raster imaging and compositing layers together. So what we did is we did an image search using Google Images, and we used the more search options, search tools, and limited the images to larger than 4 megapixels, which is roughly 2,000 by 3,000 pixels, black and white line drawings. And to select the images we wanted to use as our reference, I recommended right-clicking on them and opening them each in a new tab that allows you to keep using your search window without having to go back all the time. And we want 5 images, all with similar line quality. But you might open up more than that. Now, the reason we open them in a new tab is when we find the image, we can see that its resolution is high enough. But you want to check the image in real size by saying View Image and then zooming in to see if it was a high quality image. And this is about as high quality as this image is going to get. It's a perfect bitmap, only black pixels on white. You can see the pixels, but by the time it's printed in real size, that's a good enough resolution. And then we simply, once we approve the image, we drag and drop them to the desktop, or we right-click and save image as and navigate always to the desktop. Remember, the shortcut, if it's going somewhere else, is just hitting Command D in this little navigation window, and that will automatically take it to the desktop. So I did that with a variety of images. These are the kind of things that can happen. If the image looks blurry here and never quite comes into focus, when you hit View Image, it will tell you why. It's because it's a ghost image. There's no real image that that's referring to. And other things that can happen is we can look at it and we can see when we zoom in that this was like a badly drawn digital version of it. And this line work isn't as clean as what we wanted. So you want to be able to look at them before you save them and accept or reject their qualities. All right, now I have all of my images on the desktop already. The shortcut to see that is F11, and I have 5 images here that are all approved for use. The one common mistake students make that really leads to trouble is not right-clicking and opening them in a new tab and then checking. And there's a big difference between taking the image right from that search screen, and what I've just done is I've saved the thumbnail of the image, which is a very poor quality, low resolution. So instead what I want to do is open it up in its own tab, view it in full resolution, and then save it. And that will give me a much higher quality image for use. All right, so I'm just going to minimize that window. And now how do we use these? How do we layer them together? I am going to pick one of these images, and I am going to build on top of it. So I right-click and I'll say Open with Photoshop. If you just double-click, it will open in Preview, which we'll use for other things later. But right now I just want to open it in Photoshop. This is now my only layer. But you want to look at what image information it gives you. As soon as I saved the images, I could see that this one had a different file tag. It's a GIF file, a graphic interchange format file, instead of a PNG. And the problems with GIFs, they take up very little memory, but they are limited in the number of colors they allow. So I need to change that mode. If it says index color here, it's not compatible with some of the other things I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to say image mode RGB color. And it will change that tag. And now I'll be able to use it with my other images. All right. The other problem is I don't want this box around it. So I'm going to use this opportunity to erase. Use the eraser tool I'm going to pick a standard brush at 100% hardness, at a decent size, and I want to make sure all of my brush options up here are at 100%. So it just takes everything away. You are allowed to take away from your images, but you are not allowed to add anything. So I'm not going to be drawing with this assignment. I'm going to be creating my own artwork by layering content together. I might also decide to erase other things, like the eye. And if I want to do it more carefully, I can hit Command plus to zoom in. I can use my scroll wheel or hold down spacebar and click and drag to navigate around. I can make my brush a little bit smaller and erase a little bit more exactly. And I'm just using a mouse for this. A stylus tends to help with more accurate selections and pinpoint work. But I like to keep it pretty simple in this first exercise. So I'll do everything with the mouse. Another way we can erase content, like say I don't want the eye or even the head of this butterfly. So I'm going to zoom in with Command plus, and I will use the lasso tool. And I will click and drag around the head of this. And then simply hit delete. And because I'm on a background layer, it will ask if I want to fill it with white at 100%, and I do, so yes. And then I can use my eraser again to clean it up a little bit further. But again, I'm not going to replace, I'm not going to paint with black. I am only allowed to take away and to alter what I find. All right, now this is my first layer. I want to build more paper space around it. So I am going to go up to Image, Canvas Size, and I'm going to add some inches all around my image. So let's add about 10 inches on each side. So I'll make it 40 by 55. Growing from the center with an extension color of white. That's going to give me more space. And then with my base image, I'm going to copy it onto another image, onto another layer. And to do that, this is my favorite shortcut in Photoshop. It's Command J to duplicate the layer. So it didn't look like anything happened, but what it did is it created an exact duplicate of that layer on top. And the reason I do that is because I want my background to be a blank white, and I want that to stay a locked layer. But I want every layer on top to be more versatile. And that allows me to do things like transform them, scale them, rotate them, even warp them if I want. Just like you would with a collage. Okay? So now I have layer one, and now with the background, I want to fill this all in with just blank white. I want it to be my paper background. So I'm going to say Edit, Fill, White 100%, the whole background layer. So that's my white, and now that's my first layer on top. Now I'm ready to bring in some other images. And I do that by hitting F11, selecting an image, clicking, dragging, hit F11 again to get Photoshop back, and drop it on top. And it will go on top of whatever layer you had selected. Because I had the background layer selected, it moved it in between my two layers, but that's fine. Then I'm going to hold down Shift and Option to grow it from the middle, let it fill up the space, and hit Return. That was a little hard for you to see because it was all happening under the layer, so let me do it again. Now I have layer one selected, so when I bring it in, drag and drop, it will come on top. And this is what's called a placement window. I have to hold down Shift. If I just hold down Shift, I can drag it from each corner and make it the size I want. But if I hold down Shift Option, it will shrink or grow from the center. That only works when you're dragging from a corner. Then hit return. Okay, and return will finish that transformation. Okay, now let's do it with the next image, F11. Let's bring them all in. Drag and drop. Hold down Shift Option. Make it the size you want. Hit return. One more time. Shift Option. We go fast and we do a lot of things, but we're going to keep repeating. And that's how we'll learn. It doesn't make sense when trying to learn digital imaging to take notes on every step, because you learn it almost through muscle memory, doing it over and over again. There are so many little steps. All right, at this point, I have multiple layers, 6 different layers. But you'll notice a difference between layer 1 that I edited and these other layers. If I try to erase on these other layers, this happens. It tells me I can't. So why does it tell me I can't? It's because we brought them in from the desktop, and they are what are called smart objects. And each layer will have this little icon in its corner that show that it comes from somewhere else. So in order to be able to edit them, we have to rasterize them. And you can do that by hitting OK when you get the error message, or to be a little bit more proactive, we're going to select them all by holding down Shift and select all your smart object layers you just brought in, then right-click and say Rasterize Layers. And now they're just pixels for us to use. This allows me to go in and erase certain content. It also allows me to flip them and do all those fun alterations. Okay, now when you erase, you might find that there's a black line that shows up when you erase. And that's because these are just stacked up images. So the next step we're going to do is make each image into only black lines without any white background. We can do that by selecting all the white and deleting it, but there's always the chance that some of it would be left because we'd have to select the white very exactly, and maybe our images aren't perfect. Because they're raster images, there's going to be little gray pixels in there that maybe we would miss. So the better way to do it is to change the blending mode of each layer from an opaque normal mode to what's called multiply mode. And multiply mode will just let any pixels that are darker come through like a transparency. So I'm going to do that for each of my layers, except for the background. Convert them to multiply mode. So that all that line work is just stacked up on top. And that's what I have. And now all that's left is to play with the placement and erasing and what's called the rotation, the transformation of each layer. So I'm going to go one by one, and I can turn layers off with the little eyeballs next to them. So I like this one. Now I'm going to add this layer in. Select the layer. How do I alter it? You can go to Edit, Free Transform, but the shortcut we'll use a lot, it's probably my second favorite shortcut in Photoshop, next to Command J for duplicating a layer, Command T. Command T will draw a transform box around your layer, allows you to rotate it. If you hold down Shift, it allows you to scale it without warping. I can even flip it side to side. I can enlarge it. I'm basically looking for a line quality to be similar. So maybe like that. And then hit return. Now even though his foot is cut off, if I go back to image canvas size and decide I want more space, like maybe 60 inches, just give myself a lot of space here by 80, it won't cut off that image. A big advantage of Photoshop next to Pixlr or some of the other image editing software is if an image is off of the canvas, it's still in the memory, so you can still get it back. Other things I might want to do is zoom in and get rid of any identifying information, like his eyes.